after the hospital, they released me with a plan and some next steps for just healing and help. And I realized through that experience, I never wanted to go through that again. I never wanted to put my parents through that again. And I didn't want to keep living the way that I had been living. Those alarm bells and coping skills had become so normal that they weren't alarm bells anymore for me almost. They were white noise. I realized I didn't want that to be my normal anymore. I wanted to heal, I wanted to get better, and I wanted to learn how to climb out of the darkness into light again. So some of those next steps were just really intentional therapy. So I found a therapist who just specialized in depression and anxiety and just some of the things that I had walked through. And I also started taking medication too for depression and anxiety. We learned a little bit that, my brain chemistry was off balance. Things just weren't quite right in my brain, and the medication was able to help settle some of that and help me even just begin to think a little bit more clearly. But eventually it started to level out, and I noticed that I wanted to get up in the morning. I was still sleepy a lot of the time, but I wanted to get out of bed. I wanted to be around my friends. I wanted to go do things again and eat, and just all the things that I had done before all of this started to happen were starting to come back for me. And then I also started slowly going to church again too, and just rediscovering my relationship with Jesus, and finding that right fit for a church, and talking to God again.
So welcome to session 2. Before we get into, Adam's going to introduce who we have with us today, but I wanted to take a moment to just say how cool it is that we've got LCBC and Calvary Church and 55 churches that are all here today. Let's hear it. It's awesome. Long time ago, I've always had a life-size poster of Adam in my office because look at him. He's amazing. So I finally got up the courage to call him up and say, hey, let's do something together.
I'm glad you did.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, and now our families, we vacation in Vietnam. It's awesome.
It's great.
It's amazing.
Not yet.
Like a jet set life. Yeah. So so session 1's kind of like intro. Session 2, this whole thing is all about you guys getting to ask questions, the nuts and bolts. So what's going on in my head when I think this? Or what happens when this happens? So this session 2 is very analytical, very so what are the mechanics behind it? So go ahead and introduce our guests, because you guys are going to have direct access to some really impressive people here.
Yeah, so my name's Adam Darris. If you don't know me, I'm the young adults pastor here at Calvary Church. And we're going to have a Q&A in a little bit. We're going to have a conversation with these gentlemen, and then we're going to give you guys a chance to ask some questions so you can start thinking about what those might look like. I'm going to allow you guys just to introduce who you are. We've got Pastor George, and we've got Tegan here with us, Dr. Tegan. Could you share a little bit about who you are and your practice, and introduce yourself to those who are here?
Yeah, and I got to share, unexpectedly, I didn't realize we're related.
We are related. We found this out in the process. This is just classic Lancaster County, related to everybody somehow.
Wow.
Yeah.
So your dad is my cousin.
Yes.
So how cool is that?
Yeah, I feel smarter just through this connection. It's great.
I'm Tegan Blackbird. I'm with Journey Therapy, and I was just thinking as we're getting ready, I came to Pennsylvania 40 years ago, John.
40 or 4?
40
Wow.
years ago. That makes me old.
No,
Amen.
Old's a number.
Yeah, I came, Phil Haven Hospital brought me here in 1985. Met my wife here and got married and went into private practice 4 years later.
So you remember the 80s?
Oh, I do.
Very cool.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
So I am practicing independently now. I'm kind of semi-retired and totally enjoying it. So I love the opportunity to talk about the stuff we're getting into today, especially anxiety. I love that 40 years ago, we didn't know how to deal with anxiety, and now we do. And I think that's kind of what we're going to.
And you started Psychological Health Affiliates.
Psychological Health Affiliates in 1989 with
Wow.
a friend of mine. And then I sold that practice in 2020. And
It's kind of a big deal to have him here. I just wanted to let you know. It's kind of
Yeah,
very cool.
He's being
Thank
modest.
you.
And Pastor
Yeah.
George, what's your role here at Calvary?
I'm pastor of counseling and family ministries here, and after spending a couple of years in a clinical counseling context, I came on staff here 28 years ago. So, oversee care ministries, but do a lot of pastoral counseling as well.
There are decades of experience between these two men, and we're really excited to have this conversation.
These guys are friends.
Yeah, they know each other. They've
Nice.
practiced and had conversations and all sorts of stuff together. And this conversation was really birthed over, we went out to lunch and we all sat in a booth and we had this conversation. And we just thought, man, we want to, in some sense, allow you all to sit in on a conversation that we were able to have a few months ago. So I just want to kind of start here, Pastor George. As you and I were talking, we were thinking about this conference. You mentioned how the goal is not really to get rid of our anxiety per se, but to learn how to grow through our anxiety. Can you unpack that a little bit for us?
Yeah, I think it even comes back to what you talked about with alarms. You know, when the alarm happens, what do we do? I think our tendency is to, even in our praying, God, help me not to feel anxious. God, help me get rid of the anxiety. Or if there's a specific thing we're anxious about, God, help this to go well. We almost like use prayer to control our circumstances so that we can feel better about whatever it is we're anxious about. But we don't want to be using God to fix our anxiety. We really want to use our anxiety to draw near to God and to grow in Him. And that's where, when those alarms hit, we can step back and just take a look at what is going on. Where is this anxiety coming from? What are some of the thinking patterns that I recognize going on? What are some of the, ways in which I'm trusting in the wrong things? What are some ways in which my definition of success is off, and getting anxiety over those things? And we're going to learn a lot, and we can then bring it to God in new and different ways.
I don't know if you want to jump in here, Tegan, because we talked a little bit about good stress and bad stress and how anxiety can, again, not just to eliminate it, but to grow through it. I really appreciated your illustration. You're a biker, and you've spent some time biking.
Bicyclist.
Excuse me. Thank you. Yeah, I guess you're not out there, let's
Oh,
clarify.
you're not a biker? You don't have a Harley?
But can you share for us a little bit about how stress can actually be a healthy thing and a good thing, or can be leveraged in a positive way for us?
Yeah, and let me share something. When I think of anxiety, am I loud enough?
You're doing
Adam's
great.
telling me hold it closer to your mouth. So, when I think of dealing with anxiety, one of the things I've learned, I call it the quadfecta. And for people who have issues with anxiety, there are four things that are always true. The first is, that I experience anxiety more readily than most people. Not a big deal, but there are more things that trigger anxiety. I experience it more intensely. It lasts longer, that kind of thing. That's the first thing. But the second thing is that people with anxiety and it doesn't need to be an anxiety disorder, but just anxiety issues, we overestimate risk. We misinterpret data. Right? So we feel things strongly and we misinterpret things. We assume that things are more severe than they are. We're very sensitive to things. We're very alert to things. And the third thing is, and it sounds similar, but it's a little different. The third thing is that if people who are struggling with anxiety, it's not just that we experience more anxiety. That's the first thing. The second thing, we overestimate risk. But when we overestimate risk, we assume it's real. We just assume that's what it is. So, just to make up, I get together with George and George says, I got the worst migraine today. It's just, I am not feeling well. Just pray for me. Yeah, cool. And then as the day goes on,
Cool.
Yeah. And then as the day goes on, he's kind of short with me. He's not as responsive. He's just, he's not chuckling at my jokes. Eye contact is poor. I misinterpret data. George is upset with me. I wonder what's going on. And he's just not himself. No, he just told me he's got a migraine. He's not feeling well. I misinterpret the data. George, I wonder if he's angry at me. And then it's like, George is angry at me. I wonder what he did. I wonder what I did. And I assume it's just factual. But the fourth thing is the thing that keeps us stuck. And that is that people who deal with anxiety, take this to the bank, we are discomfort intolerant. It's not just that we experience it more readily, but when we experience it, we can't stand it. And we will do whatever we can to get rid of it. And that's where the problem
So
lies.
when you say discomfort intolerance, what do you mean by that? We move toward comfort. We idealize, the easy path. We'd rather not go through the storm. We'd rather go around it. But you're saying there's benefit to doing that at times.
You want me to tell them about Koza Road, don't you?
I want you to. I really do.
So when we get together, I really enjoyed it. That was just fun, getting together and talking. And I was telling him, so I am a bicyclist, and and George as well, and like 4,000 or 5,000 miles a year, so 150 miles a week. And when I first started bicycling, I'm embarrassed to admit this, okay? But when I first started bicycling, and the hill right outside of E-Town, anyone from Elizabethtown, I doubt it, but there might be. Koza Road, do you know Koza Road? Just going down toward Hershey. It's not a big deal. It's a rough grade. It's a steep hill. It's a difficult climb. And so when I first started riding, and this is the metaphor. When I first started riding bike, I wanted to just do the Conewago Trail from Elizabethtown. You know what I'm talking about, to Mount Gretna. And I hated that hill. So I would do one of two things. Adam, I would put my bike in the car, and I would ride down to the bottom of the hill, park it, and then I would ride my bike to Mount Gretna and come back.
Yeah.
I know. It gets worse. It gets worse. And true confessions, so I bring my bike back to the car so I could ride up. If I didn't do that, and here's where you start recognizing you have a problem, I would make arrangements with my wife. So I would ride down to the bottom of the hill, go to Gretna and back, and then I would call her, and she would pick me up so I didn't have to go up the hill.
Yeah.
That's right. But then I realized that's not helpful. And that's what I mean by the discomfort intolerance. Because Koza, it's not a horrible hill, but when I ride up the hill, it's just like, man, it doesn't feel good. I don't know if I can do it. The first few times I did it, it was so hard. And I hate that. And I wanted to avoid it. And then I realized, I don't know how I realized, but that's bad. It's a bad strategy. And so I realized I have to start going after the hills. And I have to start.
And then George started making fun of you too, right?
Yes, yes. So I have to go after the hills and push. And I found that the more I did that, the easier the hill got. That's what we say, the hill gets easier. But you know what? The hill doesn't change. What changes?
Yeah.
I change. And I got stronger as a result of dealing with the very thing that I was trying to avoid. And it's a big deal. So then you start changing and you start thinking, I actually start to have to make decisions based on what I think will be good for me rather than on the basis of what I'm feeling. So that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but how do you do that? You know what I mean? Like everybody hears that and like, oh, it makes sense. But in the moment, how do you choose not your feelings and the facts?
Say the last thing again.
How do you not choose your feelings in that moment, but instead choose the facts?
Yeah. Do you want to tackle that one, George? I mean, I have some thoughts on that if you want.
Why don't you start out, pick on that?
So I think the first thing is just recognizing what's going on in my body. And that's what you were talking about, the alarm bells. And if you have issues with anxiety, one of the things is, if you're going to talk about alarm bells, you also have to talk about false alarms. That there are sometimes alarms go off and they're not helpful and it's just a dead battery or, something's not working. And so you need to know, like, is this, and if you're dealing with anxiety, part of it is, I always talk about RAM, R-A-M, recognizing I got issues with anxiety. It isn't a big deal at all, but I need to be aware of it. And some of it is I need to learn to accept it, not beat myself up for it, just know that this is an issue for me. But I need, and John, you've talked about, John, I don't know when we met, but you gave the coolest message. And I told you this was one of my favorite messages you've ever done. Was it back in December or something about not listening to your emotions, not making decisions based on what you're feeling. And that's what it is, because what people do, we all do this, but we make decisions based on what we're feeling. And that's, if you have issues with anxiety, that's really bad strategy.
Which is awesome. It's awesome to make a decision on your feelings when your feelings are right.
Yeah.
But when your feelings are wrong, man, that's so hard to see. And especially when you're like, but if I don't do this, something bad's going to happen. Yeah, that's rough. So you're saying, actually, like, don't base it off of anything internally. Start thinking outside of yourself. Maybe even have like a friend that you can test some assumptions with.
Yeah, I mean, some of it is, I always say, spend time in the Word, get a sense of what is right and what is healthy. And I try to think in terms of healthiness. Now, how do you get a good sense of what is healthy when you're dealing with anxiety? You surround yourself with good people.
Yeah.
You know, you surround yourself with.
I was joking with Esther. Esther was like, "Did you meet my boyfriend?" And I was like, "Yeah, I met your boyfriend. What do you think?" "I think he's great. He's going to keep you in your place." Like he's going to like, "Hey, you know what? You're talking too much about this thing, or I'm upset at you because of this." Like she's a strong personality, and like sometimes someone needs to kind of, "Hey, here's some outside perspective." It's almost like we need that person in our life who can give us an outside perspective. Man, you're freaking out over this. You don't need to. Hey, this is something you don't need to worry about. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly.
And I think there's some other questions that we can process through too. The alarm hits, we experience the anxiety, the emotion of the anxiety, and then we've got to look at, what's going on inside of us. So there's a cognitive behavioral tool that uses the letters ABC. A stands for activating event, something that happened or something that we're thinking about, or and then B stands for the belief system, and C stands for the consequential emotions and behavior and that sort of stuff. Well, we normally just become aware of C. We experience the emotions, and we have to step back and say, wait, what was I thinking about, or what happened that brought these emotions on?
Can you say that again? What were the ABCs again?
Yeah, activating event is the A. So,
which is what?
So I'm coming here to participate in this panel.
Right.
So I'm thinking about that today, and so that's an activating event, and all of a sudden, but I don't notice that. Like the first thing I notice is I'm starting to feel anxious. Mm-hmm. I'm starting to feel anxious. What's going on here? Oh, well, I'm talking to myself about what might happen, at the panel. And I'm going to over dramatize this. It's not quite this bad. It used to be decades ago because, I struggled with anxiety in that way, but let me over dramatize it a little bit. Oh, it's a bunch of, young adults. What should I even wear? Like, what's okay to wear? I don't want to look stupid, and what if I blank out when I'm up there? Mm-hmm. Like and so you start recognizing this. And so the activating event is me starting to do the what ifs and the thinking about, well, what's going to happen here? I experienced it first as the emotion. I have to look at what am I thinking about? What's that activating event? And then I've got to examine the belief systems.
Okay.
And so, part of that might be saying, one of my favorite questions regarding anxiety is, what difference does it make? Like, what difference does the character of God make related to what I'm anxious about? And so, for me, I'm not the one that brings change about here. Like, that's God's job. And to the extent that you guys are leaning into what God's showing you today, like I could totally mess up and, trip over my words and whatever, but God's the one that's at work bringing about the eternal stuff.
I've heard someone say that's like, so you start with the activating event, like the thing that's going to bring about stress, and then the belief that comes out of that. I've heard people say, turn your what if into a question.
Yeah,
so
it's really good.
What if I forget? Well, what if you forgot?
Yeah.
Okay, so people would laugh. And what if they laugh?
Right.
Well, then I'd feel stupid. And what if you felt stupid? At the end of the day, you're going to go home and eat dinner. Mm-hmm. And, your wife is going to be like, don't worry about it. You're not going to die.
And those what ifs might lead me to a different conclusion, mm-hmm. too, that I fear the rejection of people.
Right.
Or that I gain my value out of what people think about me. Right? Or my definition of success has more to do with performance rather than just being faithful to what God called me to do.
Attack those beliefs. I go to the store and what if I don't know what to say? What if you don't know what to say? Well, then I won't say anything. What if you don't say anything? You're still going to purchase the tangerines or whatever you have and you're going to go home. You're going to live. It's all right.
So we got to let our beliefs about those big questions of life. Who is God? Who am I? What does he say about me? What is my purpose? What really matters? What are the values that matter in life? We've got to just drink deeply of God's words, that over time that just becomes more naturally part of our thinking. And
what's the C again? So you got A, B. And
consequential emotions and behavior. And so how did we react when, in the situation?
Okay.
I felt angry and I maybe we went to an addictive behavior, or maybe we went to an escape behavior, or maybe we went to just deepening in the anxiety and the self-talk.
You sat in your car, you never went in the store. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
But I think that's like, that whole thing is really helpful because it's helping us to see that our anxieties actually reveal something about ourselves in the depth of the core of our being. What are we putting our value in? And I think anxieties, if you kind of follow the thread, can lead us to misplaced identity, can lead us to idolatry at times, can maybe reveal different fears that we might have: fear of man, fear of failure, fear of losing control. So can you just help for those of us who are sitting here like, hey, I have these events, I'm struggling with them. How can we follow that thread a little bit to something that might really teach us something about ourselves?
And I was going to say, when I'm trying to help someone deal with anxiety, and I think that stems from that question, the key to dealing with anxiety is behavioral choices. That is a big, big deal. And it is about making healthy choices that don't necessarily align with what I'm feeling or what's going on physically in my body, right? Because anxiety is fear. Like when I keep talking about bicycling, but when I am bicycling and I'm being chased by a Doberman,
it's like a weekly event for you
to being chased by me.
Yeah. I'm not like the cortex stuff, the outer brain stuff kind of shuts down. I'm not the outer brain. You know what I mean? The outer brain is problem solving, communication, memory, writing, creative thoughts, analytic. When I'm being chased by a dog, that goes away. And we talked about the amygdala hijack. Have you ever heard that phrase, amygdala hijack? The amygdala is a part of the brain that takes control. And it communicates, it shuts down that cortical stuff. It communicates with your adrenal glands, and you start releasing adrenaline and cortisol. And so when I am in danger, that is really helpful, right? It's those hormones are going to cause my heart to beat faster, to get more blood to my extremities, especially my feet, so I can pedal. I'm going to breathe heavier to get more oxygen to my blood. And everything else, everything else is going to shut down. Huh. When I'm being chased by a dog, that's really helpful. Yep. And this has happened many times, by the way. You want to see an old man bicycling very fast up a hill?
No, I just think of when my wife's taking a nap and like I do, I come by the couch and she's like, and I'm like, what? I live here. Like, why is this scaring you? But you're saying the amygdala at that point is just going like, get ready.
And when we have, some people are wired, and you just need to know that. I am wired that I have issues with anxiety. Remember the quadfecta. And that means that anxiety is the same stuff going on, except there's no threat. It's just like a misfire.
That's creepy though, isn't it?
Well,
it's like you feel the same symptoms, but there's nothing present.
Yeah, so it's public speaking, and I'm having all of this stuff going on. I'm breathing heavy, but that's just not helpful.
Yeah, but the threat is present. Everybody could be like, we don't get it. This is stupid. Go away. But I've seen people who struggle with anxiety, and there's nothing present, and they're still ramped up. Yeah.
Can I jump in and then pass it back off to you? That's why, when we're doing that ABC thing, it may be that if our amygdala was triggered strongly enough, the first thing that we have to do is some deep breathing or take a jog around the house or something like that to help bring calm to our physiology, to activate the parasympathetic nervous system so that we can actually do the rest of the work. We've got to calm down. Yeah.
Take control of the helm. Go ahead.
And then as we try to reorient our thinking, we can't just leave it there. It has to continue into acting on that new belief system, or that belief system that we want to place our faith in. We have to act on it. I'm going to pass it back to you because I think that's where you're going.
Well, is that where some of that breath stuff comes in? Because I can't see people running around. Like if someone's nervous right now, they're not going to run around the building.
Deep breathing.
But like is deep breathing and taking control of what happens in your breathing helpful? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because all that stuff is happening automatically. My heart racing and the muscle tension and all this. And I can actually concentrate and slow my breathing down. And there's steps, I won't go into here, but there's steps we can do that help with that. To muscle tensing, muscle relaxation, just taking control of the helm. calming myself down. But the other piece is there are behavioral steps I have to take to get past that. And when I'm dealing with Kozer Road, Kozer Mountain, the only thing that's going to make a difference is I have to make a behavioral choice, and I did, to go after that beast. And I'm not making this up. I'm very embarrassed to share this, but I'm going. Picture me bicycling up this hill, and I'm yelling at the top of my lungs, "I own you!"
Nice,
right? Yeah, because you
awesome.
start getting you experience something, and you start getting stronger.
Yes.
And I've had times bicycling is a big relaxation for me. It's a big perspective taking thing. It's time with the Lord. It's thinking. It's a worshipful thing. But I've had times when I'm not feeling good. I'm tired. My muscles are aching, my joints are aching, whatever. And I don't feel like bicycling. And I'm just kind of sluggish and I'm just dragging. And I sit there and think, okay, I need to bike. I need to do this because I know, that was your question earlier. I know I will feel better if I do this.
Yeah.
So I'm not in the mood. I just don't got it today. I get out on my bike. And after I get started, I start feeling good. And I have a great ride. And I'll ride for a couple of hours. And I come back and I'm pumped. I'm like, I feel so good. I'm exhilarated. And then the thought hits me that I would not feel this way if I didn't make a behavioral choice to go out and do something that I didn't feel like doing, right? I did something that was uncomfortable, and God blessed it. And I feel exhilarated, I feel pumped. And the idea that I want to bring home is dealing with anxiety, depression. It's the behavioral piece. It's the behavioral choice that changes me. And that's what all the research shows. And it's so funny, this is the research here, 2025, with the scriptures are teaching this thousands of years ago, that it's the behaviors that we engage in that change us.
Yeah, and I think, I totally lost my train of thought.
I would not feel, in this instant, I got back from my ride, I'm feeling so good. And the thought is so powerful for me. I'm just exhilarated, I'm really pumped. And I would not feel this way if I didn't engage in this behavior, right? Because we always think it's the opposite, and that's wrong. Yeah. We always think that I will engage in these healthy behaviors
if I feel good.
If I'm feeling better.
And I just wanted to add that, we have to act on truth, counter to our anxiety feelings, as you're saying, but the counterpart is true too. When we're anxious and we choose to avoid what we're anxious about, and then we feel better, our brain learns that thing was dangerous and avoiding it helped.
Incorrectly.
Yes. So when we avoid what we're anxious about, it actually strengthens the neural pathways of anxiety in the brain. So it's super important to do what Tegan's talking about and live out what we know to be true and face the challenge and live it out.
All right, let me summarize what you guys are doing, because then we got to go to some questions, right? So tell me if I'm getting this right. I want to make sure that everybody's got in on this. So we used the example earlier of not wanting to go to the grocery store because now you got to say something to the cashier, and that kind of makes you a little panicky. Like, what am I going to say? What are they going to think? So you're saying if I avoid it and I stay in the car or I order Uber Eats or whatever, and I avoid it altogether, now I've built up a pathway in my brain of like, that was dangerous, I avoided it, success. And so now what you're doing is you're strengthening that pathway for anxiety. What we should do to defeat that, however, is to, without, like in maybe small steps or whatever, but maybe walk into the grocery store and then go home. And then maybe the next day, walk in, buy something, talk to somebody, go, just keep doing that so that the next time you have the feeling, you can counter it with reality of, I've done this before. So it's like cognitive behavioral therapy.
Spot on. And I want to just embellish one thing you said is that, and this is what I was talking about with the bad strategy piece, is when I go into the grocery store, I am feeling discomfort. That's okay, because the bad strategy, that's what you're talking about, is we are wired to avoid the comfort. I want the discomfort. I want to get rid of the discomfort. That's awful strategy. I don't want to get rid of the discomfort. I want to increase my tolerance for the discomfort. Okay. So as I'm going back into the grocery store and I'm feeling tense, I want to be enjoying that I can do this. I can handle this. That I'm going after a hill.
Yeah. And I want
I'm getting
a friend.
stronger.
Hey, I want to tell my friend, hey, I'm uncomfortable with this. Would you push me?
Well, I want to make sure we have some time
Yeah.
for some questions. So we're going to have a microphone on this side and on this side. If you've got a question, we're going to take about 10 or 15 minutes here. Just throw your hand up, and we'd love to run a mic to you and allow these guys to answer any questions we might have in the room. And if we have no questions, this will be a short segment, all right? If you got a question, throw your hand up. We got one here in the front.
What are the good qualities of our generation, and how can they be used to glorify God?
What are the good
Gen Z.
qualities of our generation, and how can they be used to glorify God? It's kind of a broad, it's getting us into it slow. They're like,
I think
don't
there's
see
a
it.
lot of passion in your generation. I see a lot of fervor, especially in this generation of believers. I see taking their faith seriously in some really significant ways. And yeah, I mean, I think that can really help to take the church into a new level of a genuine walk with Christ and facing some of the challenges that our church faces for today. I think there's a value to community, a value to relationship that the younger generation sees. And even if there's a struggle living it out, I think that's seen more in the younger generation than perhaps in my generation or older. And again, I think that's so significant because the community is such a significant part of spiritual growth. We grow in the context of community much better than ourselves. And again, I just think that this generation perhaps sees that in clearer ways. So it's good.
Yeah, I was going to say the two things come to mind for me. Your generation, and this culture is the passion. I see a lot of passion. And one thing, and this can be a bad thing, but I think it can be a really powerful thing, is and it's changed in the last 10 years especially, is it's just believing everything you hear, not taking things at face value just because someone said so, but thinking critically and trying to sort things through and look for truth elsewhere. I think that's a big deal.
That's good. Next question.
Yeah, one right here.
Yes, I have a question about like when you're experiencing anxiety, can that cause like stomach issues and like can that cause health problems in your body?
Good. So what are some of the physiological responses that we might see manifest from anxiety or stress?
Yes. Yes, it can. It really can. Stress is a big deal, and it doesn't need to be, I don't know, I don't like sometimes, we talk about anxiety disorders and attention deficit disorder and depressive disorders, and I don't know, I hate the disorder thing. I like to think just in terms of anxiety issues, but, we've dealt with some unbelievable stressors in our family life. You guys are aware, just some health issues in this last year. And it's so funny how if you see me at any point in time and you ask me, I'm doing fine. My mood is good and I'm focusing on God but at the same time, I'm aware of the drain on my body. And I just sometimes feel, there's so many ways it can influence us. Gastrointestinal issues or, any health issues, joint pain, fatigue. And sometimes I'm not even aware of it until I stop and pause and note. And it's like, man, I'm so serious right now, or I'm not. You just lose like a zest or I'm not as chipper. And, stress is a big deal. Stress kills. Blood pressure, joint pain, asthma. I mean, there's no limit.
Asthma.
Yeah, and stress actually, like, I would agree with you. Like, for me, when I experience stress and anxiety, it is in the gastrointestinal area. That's just where I feel it. And different people feel it in different places. It's one of the things that you can begin to take note of when the alarm bell goes off. Where am I experiencing this? Because the quicker you can recognize how you begin to experience anxiety and stress, the faster you'll see it and the faster you can pull back. before the anxiety takes over so much. And stress also weakens the immune system. And so if we are constantly stressed, constantly anxious, it actually weakens our immune system and makes us more susceptible to common viruses or even more significant diseases.
And that can happen. Like, I'm not showing signs of anxiety. I'm not having panic attacks. I'm not freaking out. I'm very effective. I'm doing well, but it's taking its toll on my body.
These are great questions.
Good. Next question. Got one in the back.
I feel like I'm cheating because I'm not a young adult. I'm Adam's wife. But
Hi, babe.
Hi, honey. You're doing great. I'm just curious, as a female in the room and having no female on stage, I'm curious as someone who has high emotions, can you talk to the value of understanding emotions while also the behavioral choices obviously matter, but also I think sometimes in Christian culture, we can overemphasize the just do it and not value the emotion side.
Yeah, let me start by saying, thanks, Karis. Let me just start by saying that.
And the no women on stage, we should have her come up. She's got a mic, you know.
I think sometimes in the Christian community, we get this perception that, well, if I'm feeling anxious, that's sin. I'm not supposed to feel anxious. And then we get into this pattern, the anxiety starts, and we're like, don't feel anxious, stop feeling anxious, stop feeling anxious. And we get anxious about our experience of anxiety. And I just think that's totally unhelpful. Instead, I think, Karis, what you talked about is not shutting down our emotions, but exploring what those emotions are telling us, no matter what that emotion is. And we can learn great things about ourselves and where some of those emotions are coming from. And we can also recognize some things that maybe need some work in terms of where some of those emotions are coming from. But when it comes to anxiety, we need to realize that this is super complex. It's not just behavioral. It's not just emotional. Like there's a lot of body and brain stuff that goes into this as well. Some people even perhaps are born with a little bit of neurological predisposition towards it. Others through adverse child experiences or trauma, that predisposition toward anxiety gets formed within the brain. We can even strengthen neural pathways in our brain by simply thinking in unhealthy, anxious ways. The good news about that is by thinking in healthier ways and acting on that, we can actually weaken the anxiety neural pathways in the brain. The brain is constantly changing, and there is a lot of hope that we have today that, as Tegan says, 30 years ago, we didn't even know about. And so there's a lot of hope in fighting anxiety in a way that we can actually grow and find some relief to it. But sometimes we need some meds to help out. Here's what you don't want to do. You don't want to use so much meds that the anxiety is gone and that there's no wrestling, right? So if I go to the, getting back to the building up our muscles thing, there's this thing at Planet Fitness to do pull-ups, right? And I would be embarrassed to tell you how many pull-ups I can't do. But this machine is really cool. You can set it and it takes a certain amount of weight off your body so that I can do pull-ups. And so here's what's unhelpful. Oh, let me take 150 pounds off my body and then I can, and just doing the pull-ups is just really easy, right? But that's not helping me. My muscles aren't growing in that context. And so it's much better for me to set that weight so that it's doable for me, but I still experience the challenge and I still have to do my work. And so when we use meds, we want to be careful not to take away the work, but to take away, like if I was doing pull-ups all on my own without any help, I might be able to get a couple out, but I'm not going to do 20 reps. And so, just with meds, to help enough that we can actually do our work. I don't know if that's helpful or not.
Great visual.
It's great.
And I was going to add, can I just comment on that too? That's a really good question, and I appreciate your transparency in asking it. So when I work with anxiety, depression, whatever it is, I identify myself as a cognitive behavioral therapist. Now, try and find a therapist anywhere that doesn't say they do CBT. Everyone and their dog says they do CBT, but they don't. And the difference is, like, there's the cognitive piece, which is the self-talk and the self-awareness. But in CBT, so if I were working with you, what I would be working on is the cognitive piece, and this is a little different than cognitive therapy. In the cognitive piece is being aware of what's going on in my body, being aware of where my tension is, being aware of my triggers, knowing what is happening physically to me. And some of that, then I mentioned earlier, RAM, recognizing it, the A is accepting it. And that is different. And no one with anxiety issues does that. I need to accept that I'm experiencing this, and it's all right. It really is okay. Because the default is, I need to get rid of this anxiety. That's bad strategy. I don't need to get rid of the anxiety. I don't need to avoid Kozer Hill. I need to get stronger. I need to focus on facing those things that create the tension. And so that's the accepting and just recognizing I'm experiencing this, and it really is okay. It's like, I give it a name, and I call it Fred. I've got anxiety issues. Some people, their thing is low blood pressure or diabetes or whatever it is. You just have to manage it. And so that's how I would focus. The managing it is, what are you going to do with it? And a lot of that management piece, it is making behavioral choices that will make you stronger. So it is figuring out what are my triggers and facing them, because that does not come naturally to us. We are wired to avoid the things that cause discomfort. That's not what you want to do.
So good. Yeah.
You want to face the things and get stronger. So when I'm riding, I'll shut up, but when I'm riding up a steep hill, I push myself and my legs are burning and I'm breathing heavy. And it's uncomfortable. And I've gotten to the point where I'm recognizing right now, that's okay, right? And I know the physiology of what's going on in my legs. And the burn is because there's muscle fibers that are being torn and they're being stretched. And when I rest, they will be rebuilt and it will make me stronger. So I am actually thinking as I'm going up the hill, that's the tolerance thing. This hurts, but this is awesome. I am going to get stronger. So I always tell people, John, if we were riding bike and we're going up Kozer Road today and it's really hard and you push it, I will tell you in 2 days, you take 1 day off and you do it again in 2 days, it'll be easier. And I tell people this all the time. And then you do it again and you'll be faster. And you take a couple of days off, do it again, you will be faster. And it's that dramatic in a couple of days.
I like that because I think it gives hope to people in the room who maybe are wired a little bit more anxiously. And in some ways, anxiety can be like a superpower. Like you're thinking about stuff other people aren't thinking about. You're aware of some things. But when it goes to a degree where like you're catastrophizing or you're just like it's restricting your ability to function, I think that's hopeful. It's like, wow, I can actually work on this. Given enough time and in the right direction, I can be better a month from now or a year from now. It just takes time.
And I think we need to apply this in the spiritual area too. I mean, all of life is spiritual, but I just mean in the way that we approach Scripture and the way we approach God. We often take that phrase out of context. You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. I mean, that's a great phrase to put on a poster on your wall. The problem is, like I have this fear of snakes, and I won't go all into it. It'd take too much time.
That's right.
But I have a fear of snakes. Now, here's my strategy. I'm going to go to the library and read everything there is to read about snakes.
Watch some videos.
And watch some, well, maybe I won't watch videos. I'll read everything that I can so that I know the truth about snakes and that they're not going to come after me and which kinds are poisonous and which ones aren't. Then the next time I see a snake, I won't feel anxious. So that doesn't work, does it? It doesn't. So in the same way, sometimes I think we go to Scripture and we're like, okay, I read this truth. Now I should be free from this.
That's good.
Oh, that didn't work. Well, actually, if we put verse, 832 with 831, it's actually part of an if-then statement. Verse 31 says, if you hold to my teachings, and that's more than just signing on the dotted line that, yes, I can sign this doctrinal statement. It says, if you hold to my teachings, then you're my disciple. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. So there's a behavioral, there's a behavioral growth aspect to that setting free that the truth brings to us.
That's really good.
Yeah, it's great. Let's squeeze one last question in, and then we will, we're going to find, do we have someone lined up? We got one right here.
Hi. So we talked about facts and feelings relating to anxiety. I'm wondering what the approach should be if some of your facts sort of correlate with that feeling, and if you should focus on other facts or sort of disregard the ones that are leaning into your anxieties.
Could you go a little more specific with that, like maybe an example?
Yeah, like say I'm really scared of snakes. Say like last time I got bit by a snake. Okay, well, the fact is there's a snake in front of me, but I also have a fact that there's a glass wall. I'm at the zoo. If I lean into the fact that there's a snake in front of me, maybe that would induce more anxieties if I'm avoiding that there's a wall. So is it sort of like a game of which facts you focus on, or should you just take it holistically?
Yeah, so brief story.
This is great.
My wife and I were out for a hike, up past Buttermilk Falls, and at the top there's this place called Rattlesnake Ridge, and I have no idea why I chose to hike there, but it was a beautiful falls. I knew Linda would like it. And sure enough, about 3/4 of the way up to the top, we hear and it was a snake. It was about 5 feet.
That was supposed to be a rattlesnake noise. Can you do that again, George? That was...
Pretty bad, huh? But yeah, anyway, 5 feet from me, there was a rattler, and it was all coiled up, and its rattle was going. So, that's truth. Like, I need to recognize it's probably not a good idea for me to go over there and try to stomp its head, right? But what I had to do first, deep breathing, bring calm, because my sympathetic nervous system is activated. I'm scared into freeze, right? And so then I think through, okay, I'm going to walk around, and I didn't avoid. I knew if I avoided, it'd be a problem. So I walked past it and went on up. But, when I got up to the top, I was out of cell phone range. And when I got back into cell phone range, I started getting some text messages in. And I had a new cell phone, and it was set to, for text, it was set to a thing called Baby Rattle. Yep. And it started to go off. And every time, the first time I was actually scared, like there's something around me. But then I realized what was going on. But you know what? Even though I knew it, every time that baby rattle went off, my system activated a little bit. And so when we see truth, we need to act on that truth. And we try not to avoid it. We act in wise ways based on what is true about our anxiety. But when we see a false anxiety trigger, or when we see that perhaps we are overly exaggerating the risk, then we've got to process that, recognize that, turn that volume down, turn up the volume on the true beliefs and our active trust in what's true, or active trust in God, and go forward, even though there is some of that feeling of anxiety that's there. I don't know, is that helpful? Was that okay?
Yeah, so good.
Yeah, it's great. Well, can we give them a round of applause? We're so thankful. Thank you for spending time with us this afternoon. We're going to take a 10-minute break right now. I'd encourage you to grab a snack, use the restroom, whatever you want. We're going to come back for session 3. You want to jump in, John?
Well, real quick, just want to let you guys know, it's only 10 minutes, so it's a little bit shorter. If you can come back quickly, next session is going to be completely different. We're going to be looking at, let's talk to God. Let's hear from God in this. So I think we're going to have a real special time, session 3, so don't miss that.
Yeah, come back in 10 minutes, and then we'll eat some food a little after 6.